Justin was a young barber who owned a small unisex salon in the heart of Lagos. His shop was modest but functional, with a loyal stream of customers who admired his skill and warm personality. He didn't earn much, but he made enough to pay his bills and indulge in little treats here and there. Justin was content with his life, or so he thought. One Saturday, Justin was invited to a birthday party by one of his customers, Kennedy, a cheerful young man who frequented his salon. Kennedy had always been polite, though he often talked about his lavish lifestyle in passing. Exotic vacations, designer clothes, and late-night parties in the most exclusive clubs. Justin didn't think much of it until he attended the party. The event was a show of opulence beyond Justin's imagination. The mansion was sprawling, with glittering chandeliers and a pool surrounded by luxury cars. The guests, most of whom appeared to be in their early 20s, flaunted their wealth unapologetically. Some threw wads of cash into the air, foreign currency fluttering down like confetti, as they laughed and sipped expensive champagne. Justin sat in a corner, quietly observing. The amount of money wasted that night could fund his entire business for a year or more. He watched as a man who couldn't have been older than 25 handed out stacks of dollars to the waiters as tips. The more Justin watched, the more uneasy he felt. A sense of dissatisfaction began to creep in, gnawing at the edges of his contentment. "What am I doing with my life?" he thought. When he returned home that night, sleep eluded him. His mind replayed scenes from the party, the cars, the cash, the carefree laughter. Justin couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy. "I work so hard, and for what? To barely scrape by while these guys live like kings." The following week, Justin made up his mind. The next time Kennedy came to the salon, he would ask him about his lifestyle. It didn't take long. Kennedy strolled into the salon a few days later, grinning as usual. Justin kept it professional, but as he trimmed Kennedy's hair, he broached the topic. "Kennedy, that party you threw, it was something else," Justin began, choosing his words carefully. Kennedy chuckled. "Thanks, man. Glad you could make it. Can I ask you something?" Justin hesitated, then pressed on. "How do you afford all that? The cars, the cash, the parties. What do you do?" Kennedy's smile didn't waver, but his eyes flickered with something unreadable. "Ah, Justin, it's not something we usually talk about openly. But let's just say it's business. Big business." Justin leaned in, lowering his voice. "I want in. Whatever it is, I want to be part of it. I'm tired of struggling while others are out there living." Kennedy raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about that?" "Because I have been meaning to talk to you about something too," Kennedy mentioned. "It's something that can change your life and make you richer than your wildest imaginations," Kennedy said. This caught Justin's attention, and he paused midway through cutting Kennedy's hair. To everyone's surprise, Justin stood up straight, looked around his shop, and made a decision on the spot. "Everyone, I'm really sorry, but I have to close up immediately. It's an emergency," he announced. The customers, some halfway through their haircuts, stared at him in confusion. His workers exchanged baffled glances, but Justin remained firm. He apologized again, reassuring them they would get discounts on their next visit. Grumbling, the customers and staff left reluctantly. Once the shop was empty and locked, Justin turned to Kennedy. "Now tell me everything," he said, his voice resolute. Kennedy chuckled, clearly impressed by Justin's sudden show of decisiveness. "You're serious about this, huh? I didn't expect you to take action so quickly." "I'm tired of being stuck in the same place, Kennedy. I've been doing the same thing for years, and I want more out of life. I want to be like you and your friends. I want to live, not just survive." Kennedy nodded slowly, leaning back in the barber's chair. "All right, Justin, I'll give it to you straight. I am a Yahoo boy, a slang for internet fraudster," he said, his voice calm yet unapologetic. "And so are all my friends you saw at the party." Justin's eyes widened in amazement. His suspicions had been confirmed. "I said it," he thought to himself. But as the excitement coursed through him, a realization hit like a bucket of cold water. He didn't have any formal education and had never used a laptop in his life. This, he thought, was going to be a major problem. Kennedy continued speaking, explaining how the game worked. "It's all about strategy, Justin. You've got to be smart, convincing, and patient. You need to learn how to communicate in ways that make people trust you. The tools are simple: a laptop, internet access, and creativity. Justin nodded along, but his mind was racing. As Kennedy wrapped up, Justin decided it was best to lay his cards on the table. "Kennedy," he started hesitantly, "I want to do this, but there's something I need to tell you." Kennedy raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "I've never used a laptop before. I don't even know how to turn one on," Justin admitted, feeling a mix of embarrassment and fear. Kennedy stared at him for a moment before bursting into laughter. "Ah, Justin, you're serious?" Justin nodded, his face solemn. "Well," Kennedy said, still chuckling, "that's a first. But don't worry, there is a way you can still make money without needing a laptop," he added, his tone turning serious. Justin leaned in, intrigued but cautious. "How?" Kennedy lowered his voice, glancing around the empty shop as if to make sure no one was eavesdropping. "You see, what we do requires more than just skills and technology. There are spiritual aspects to it." Justin frowned, his unease growing. "Spiritual? What do you mean?" Kennedy sighed as if debating how much to reveal. "Let me put it this way. For our operations to work smoothly, for the victims to always obey our instructions, we need to use certain materials. My friends and I are in constant need of human hair for voodoo purposes. It's how we ensure success." Justin's heart sank, and a chill ran down his spine. "Human hair for voodoo?" he echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. Kennedy nodded. "Yes, it's not as bad as it sounds though. All you need to do is collect hair from your customers, clippings from your barbing. It's simple. You bag it up, give it to me, and I'll handle the rest. In return, you'll get paid handsomely for every batch." Justin was terrified. His palms grew sweaty, and he could feel his pulse racing. He had never been involved in anything like this before, and the thought of contributing to something fetish made his stomach churn. "I don't know, Kennedy," Justin said hesitantly. "This sounds wrong. I'm not sure I want to be part of something like this." Kennedy sighed and leaned back in the chair, his expression calm but serious. "Look, Justin, I get it. This isn't for everyone. But think about it. You've been struggling for years, working hard, and where has it gotten you? Nowhere. This is your chance to change that, to make real money, live a better life. And honestly, you're not doing anything dangerous. You're just collecting hair, something you already do." Justin shook his head, his thoughts a whirlwind of fear and doubt. "But what happens after? What do you do with the hair?" Kennedy shrugged. "That's not your concern. You're not the one using it. You're just supplying it. Think of it as business. You don't ask too many questions, and you get paid. Simple as that." Justin stood in silence, staring at the floor. Part of him was tempted by the promise of easy money, but another part of him was repulsed by the idea of getting involved in something so dark. "What if I say no?" Justin asked finally, his voice trembling. Kennedy smiled faintly, though his eyes darkened. "If you say no, that's fine. But you get paid $10,000 per hair you provide, and even more if you provide their fingernails and toenails alongside." Justin's jaw dropped, his mind reeling at the amount. "Wait, what? Did you just say $10,000 per hair?" he asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. Kennedy chuckled, clearly amused. "Yes, you heard me right, and even more if you throw in the nails." Justin's eyes darted around the shop as he tried to process the numbers. He had never made anything close to that amount in all his years running the salon. $10,000 per hair, he repeated under his breath. Then louder, he added, "Kennedy, are you serious? You're not joking, right?" Kennedy burst into laughter. "I'm as serious as a heart attack, Justin. This is the real deal, no jokes." Justin stood there, frozen for a moment, then suddenly sprang into action. He grabbed a broom and dustpan and started sweeping up the scattered clippings on the floor. His hands trembled as he worked, his excitement bubbling over. "Here, here, take this," Justin said, handing Kennedy a bag of freshly swept hair. "Take it for free. Call it a gesture of good faith. I'm 100% in, Kennedy. Whatever you need, I'll do it." Kennedy laughed harder, shaking his head in amusement. "Slow down, my friend. Business is business. I don't take freebies." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a thick bundle of cash, and handed it to Justin. $10,000, Kennedy said, smirking, "for the hair." Justin's hands shook as he accepted the money, his disbelief evident. He flipped through the crisp bills, feeling the weight of it both literally and metaphorically. This is real," he whispered, almost to himself. "It's very real," Kennedy replied, his tone carrying a mix of humor and gravity. "And this is just the beginning. Imagine what you'll make if you bring in nails too." Justin nodded rapidly, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Kennedy, I swear I'll give you everything you need. Hair, nails, whatever it takes. I'll even convince my customers to trim their nails if that's what you want." Kennedy grinned, clearly satisfied. "Good, I like your enthusiasm. But remember, Justin, this isn't just about money. You need to stay sharp, follow instructions, and above all, keep this between us. If anyone finds out what we're doing, it's over for both of us." Justin nodded fervently. "You can count on me. I won't tell a soul." Kennedy patted him on the shoulder. "All right then, I'll send someone to pick up the next batch in a few days. Keep it clean and make sure there's no suspicion." As Kennedy left, Justin stared at the bundle of cash in his hand, a mixture of excitement and unease swirling inside him. He had stepped into a world he barely understood, but the promise of wealth had blinded him to the risks. For now, all he could think about was how many customers he could convince to trim more than just their hair, and how soon he could hand it all over to Kennedy for more money. And so he devised a bold plan, slashing the prices at his salon by 90% and offering free pedicures and manicures with every haircut. At first, his workers thought he had lost his mind. "Sir, how will we make any profit with these prices?" one of them asked. Justin smiled knowingly. "Trust me, this is all part of a marketing plan. Just do your job and leave the rest to me." Word spread quickly about Justin's unbelievable offer. Customers who had been loyal to other salons decided to give his shop a try. Those who couldn't afford regular haircuts and grooming before flocked to his salon in droves. After the first few customers confirmed the deal was real, the floodgates opened. Soon there was a long queue of people waiting to get their haircuts, manicures and pedicures. Every chair was occupied, and his staff worked tirelessly to keep up with the demand. The salon was packed from morning till night, and Justin had to hire extra hands to manage the influx. "Sir, this place is booming," one of his workers said, wiping sweat from their brow during a brief break. "But how are we making money?" Justin smirked, brushing the question aside. "Don't worry about that. Just keep doing your job and keep the customers happy." Behind the scenes, Justin was meticulously collecting hair clippings, fingernails, and toenails from every customer. He stored them in neatly labeled bags, ready for Kennedy and his friends to collect. True to his word, Kennedy introduced Justin to his crew of fraudsters. They came regularly to pick up the materials and paid Justin handsomely for each batch. "Man, you're really delivering," one of Kennedy's friends said, handing Justin a thick envelope filled with cash. "Keep this up, and you'll be untouchable." Justin grinned, the money fueling his ambition. He had never felt so powerful or successful. In less than a month, his life transformed completely. He moved out of his modest apartment and bought a luxurious house in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. The house had everything he had ever dreamed of: a swimming pool, a spacious garage, and a stunning view of the skyline. He filled the garage with sleek, expensive cars, each one a symbol of his newfound wealth. Justin started dressing in designer clothes and attending exclusive parties, where he rubbed shoulders with the city's elite. People who had once dismissed him as just a barber now looked at him with envy and admiration. "Justin, you're living the dream," Kennedy said during one of their regular meetings. Justin laughed, raising a glass of champagne. "And it's all thanks to you, Kennedy. I owe you everything." Kennedy waved his hand dismissively. "Nah, you made it happen. I just showed you the way." But beneath the surface, Justin couldn't shake the nagging feeling that his success came at a cost. His workers began to notice the strange amounts of hair and nails being collected, and some customers started asking questions about how he could afford such low prices while living such a lavish lifestyle. "Justin, how are you pulling this off?" one customer asked, eyeing him suspiciously. Justin laughed nervously. "I've got my ways. Let's just say I have some very generous investors." The explanation seemed to satisfy most people, for now, but as Justin's wealth and reputation grew, so did the risks. He was living the life he had always dreamed of, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was all hanging by a thread. In the spirit of his newfound wealth, he decided to invite his mother and younger brother to visit him in the city. He wanted to show them how far he had come and give them a taste of the luxury he had been living. He took them to fancy restaurants, bought them clothes, and made sure they had anything their hearts desired. His mother, who had always been proud of him but never fully understood his ambition, couldn't help but smile at the transformation. "My son, look at what you've achieved. I'm so proud of you," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. Justin smiled, enjoying every moment. "I told you I would make it, Mama. I'm going to take care of both of you now." The highlight of the visit came when he took them to his salon. They were awestruck by how busy and chaotic it was. People lined up, some even fighting to get in. It was a testament to the success of his business, and his mother beamed with pride. "This is amazing, Justin," his brother exclaimed. "You've really made it." Justin grinned. "You haven't seen anything yet. Wait until you see how we treat VIPs around here." He ordered his workers to give them the best treatment: premium cuts, manicures, and pedicures. As his mother and brother sat down, Justin received a call that required his immediate attention. He hurriedly left the salon, telling his staff to take care of everything. For a brief moment, everything seemed perfect. His family was being pampered, his salon was running smoothly, and he was walking away from it all, distracted by his call. But unbeknownst to Justin, his workers, in their rush to keep things moving, swept up his mother and brother's hair and nails and tossed them into the trash, not realizing how significant those items were. When Justin returned to the salon after handling his business, he was still absorbed in the call, absent-mindedly moving about the shop. In the chaos, he failed to check if the hair and nails were properly separated from the rest of the collected items. The next day, Kennedy came around for his usual pickup, and Justin, still distracted, handed him a bag filled with the items, forgetting that it contained his own mother's and brother's hair and nails. Kennedy took the bag without question, ready to continue his operation as usual. Justin didn't think twice about it. But the next morning, everything came crashing down. His mother was screaming at him for no reason, her face a mixture of rage and sorrow, while his younger brother stood quietly in the corner, drooling uncontrollably like an imbecile. It was as though something inside of him had shattered, leaving behind a hollow shell. Justin's heart pounded in his chest as he grabbed his mother and brother, rushing them to the nearest hospital. In a flurry of panic, he begged the doctors to find some explanation, something, anything, that could explain the drastic change in his family. The tests ran all day, but when the results came back, the doctors were as confused as Justin. No medical reasons could be found. Frustration, fear, and guilt gripped him as he sat in the sterile hospital room, his mother acting like a lunatic in one corner while his brother rocked back and forth, completely unresponsive. Justin's mind raced, trying to find an answer, when suddenly it hit him like a ton of bricks. The hair. The nails. He had sold to Kennedy just like he had with his other customers. His mother's and brother's hair and nails had been part of that batch. The realization was suffocating. He knew what had happened, and the weight of his actions crushed him. He didn't even wait for a second longer. Without thinking twice, Justin rushed out of the hospital, barely registering the concerned looks of the staff as he sped back to his car. He knew what he had to do. He had to get those clippings and nails back. It was the only way to undo the damage. He was desperate. Driving recklessly, his hands shaking on the wheel, Justin raced to Kennedy's house, not caring for the traffic or the speed limits. He knew that time was against him. When he finally arrived, he didn't bother with pleasantries. He stormed into Kennedy's compound, his breath ragged, his voice shaking. "Kennedy! Kennedy!" Justin cried, his voice breaking as he rushed toward the door. Kennedy appeared, his usual calm demeanor faltering slightly when he saw the frantic look in Justin's eyes. "What's going on, man? Why the panic?" Without warning, Justin collapsed to his knees, his hands trembling as he bowed his head to the floor. "Please, Kennedy, please," he begged, his voice desperate. "Give me back the hair. The nails I sold you, the last batch. I made a terrible mistake. It's my family. My mother. My brother. They're not themselves anymore. Please, I need them back. I need to fix this. I never meant for this to happen." Kennedy stood still for a moment, staring at Justin, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he crossed his arms, shaking his head. "Justin," Kennedy said quietly, almost sadly, "I don't know if you understand what you're asking. You sold those things, man. The ritual has been done. It's irreversible. There's no going back." Justin's heart sank at those words. He looked up, eyes wide with panic. "What do you mean irreversible? There has to be a way. You have to help me. You have to help my family. I never intended for any of this to happen." Kennedy sighed deeply, his eyes softening a little. He crouched down to meet Justin's gaze, his voice calm but firm. "Listen, man, I get it. I do. You're in a tough spot, but once that hair and those nails are given over, the damage is done. The ritual is already complete. There's no undoing it, no turning back. It's out of my hands, and there's nothing I can do to reverse what's been done." Justin's world seemed to collapse around him. His mind screamed in disbelief, but his body was too drained to argue further. He had gone too far, made too many sacrifices without fully understanding the cost. "Please," Justin whispered, his voice shaking, "there has to be something. Please tell me there's something I can do." Kennedy stood up slowly, his face hardening. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. But there's nothing that can be done. The ritual has claimed them. They're gone." Justin stood frozen, the gravity of Kennedy's words sinking into his bones. His mother, his brother were lost to him, and it was all his fault. Everything he had done, every step he had taken toward wealth and success had led to this tragic, irreversible moment. He turned away from Kennedy, his hands clenched into fists. As he stumbled out of Kennedy's compound, the weight of his mistakes pressed down on him with unbearable force. His mind was a whirlwind of guilt, regret, and sorrow. As he sat in his car, his hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles turned white. He looked back at the house he had bought, the cars he had collected, the life he had dreamed of, only to realize that it all came with a price that he wasn't willing to pay. His mother, the woman who had raised him with love and care, was now a shell of her former self. His brother, who had been his companion, his only family left, was now reduced to an empty, drooling figure. Justin had everything he had ever wanted, but at the cost of everything he truly cared about. And as he drove back to the empty mansion, all he could hear in his head was the haunting sound of his mother's voice. "How could you do this to us?" Justin sat in his mansion, surrounded by the opulence he had once dreamed of. The marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and sleek cars in the driveway, all of it now felt hollow, meaningless. The laughter, pride, and warmth that had once filled his life were replaced by a deafening silence and the weight of his guilt. He looked at a framed photo of his family on the mantel. His mother's warm smile and his younger brother's carefree grin. They had always believed in him, always stood by him, and he had repaid their love with betrayal. The haunting image of his brother, now drooling and vacant, and his mother's tear-streaked, furious face wouldn't leave his mind. The realization of what he had become hit him like a wave. It wasn't just his mother and brother he had harmed. He thought of all the families whose lives he had indirectly destroyed. Every bag of hair and nails he had sold to Kennedy had likely caused unimaginable pain and suffering to someone else's loved ones. He had chased wealth, but at what cost? Justin slumped into a chair, his head in his hands, as tears streamed down his face. He was consumed by the weight of his actions, the faces of the victims flashing before him like a cruel slideshow. The very thought of continuing to live in this mansion, bought with the price of innocent lives, was unbearable. In the stillness of the night, Justin made a decision. He went to the bar in his living room, the one he had once stocked with the finest drinks money could buy. Now it was just another reminder of his greed. He pulled out a bottle of whiskey, his hands trembling as he poured himself a glass. He reached into the drawer beneath the bar and pulled out a small vial of poison he had bought years ago to deal with pests around his salon. He stared at it for a long moment, the room eerily silent, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning. "I can't undo what I've done," Justin whispered to himself, his voice trembling. "I've hurt too many people. I've destroyed my own family. There's no way out of this, no way to fix it." He poured the poison into the glass, watching as it swirled and mixed with the amber liquid. His mind was numb, The only feeling left was the crushing weight of his guilt. Justin picked up the glass, his hand still shaking. He raised it to his lips, pausing for a moment as tears welled up in his eyes. He whispered a final apology, though he wasn't sure to whom. His mother, his brother, the families he had wronged, or perhaps himself. "I'm sorry," he choked out, his voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry." With that, he downed the drink in one swift motion, the bitter taste of the poison barely registering as it slid down his throat. He set the glass down on the bar, his vision blurring as the poison began to take effect. Justin collapsed onto the floor, clutching his chest as the pain surged through him. His breathing became shallow, his vision darkening. In his final moments, he thought of his mother's smile, his brother's laughter, and the life he had left behind before greed consumed him.